then let's get some perspectives to this matter. The Beavers reconfiguration and the postponement of the governorship election from the March 11th to the 18th of March 2023. I'm now being joined by a former director of voter education in the Independent National Electoral Commissioner and a very senior lawyer, Mr. Oluwole Osazuzi, who is also a Channels Television election consultant. Thanks so much indeed, Mr. Osazuzi, for your time.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
Give us a sense of why you think it was needed that INEC postpone the election by a week.
Thank you. You know, with the furore that arose out of the challenges that the Commission had with the presidential National Assembly elections, especially with the Beavers and the upload of results, you could not envisage a situation with the tension of the country, with the uncertainty, with all that has happened in the last 10, 12 days. I don't think INEC could afford to get it wrong again. Things went all right last time around, and confidence, I think, is at an all-time low. Some people may begin to get over it, but I think the vast majority of Nigerians are not satisfied. I don't think the Commission itself is satisfied with the way things turned out. Having said that, elections were long scheduled. A year ago, elections were scheduled to hold, more than a year ago, scheduled to hold on the 11th of March for the governorship and for those states that have governorship elections and the state houses of assembly. You had to get it right. You just had to be right. And in the last time, I think part of the problem was that INEC chose timing over process. There was a call to be made. Do you delay things and ensure you follow the process to the letter, even if it means delaying this thing for a week or for however period of time? Or do you, well, save time, save tension, just go ahead and bypass some of the processes laid down in your regulations? I think it took the former. This time around, I think process triumphed over timing. If they had gone ahead with the timing, I don't think this election, the governorship and state house assembly elections, will probably be come out the same way, or if not worse, than the presidential and national assembly elections did. Because you need the Beavers, and the way things are done, you needed to reconfigure these Beavers, and it takes time to do so.
Beavers was not a problem in the first election. It was a situation, I mean, so a lot of people had, posited that Beavers worked in most places.
Yes.
But the concern was the transmission of the results that have been taken with the Beavers onto the IRF portal. And I'm not sure, based on what INEC is saying, that, well, the IRF portal, they had a technical issue, and perhaps they've been able to fix it, and the back end is working and all of that, and just a few thousand left out of the over almost 180,000 polling unit results that are supposed to be uploaded. But the Beavers is the question here. This is at the center of the reason for the postponement of the election. Is that a genuine or tenable reason for INEC to postpone the election?
You're asking me to pass a valid judgment, but unfortunately it's difficult for me to do so when I don't have all the facts. I can only work within the purview of the facts presented by the Commission itself and is in public domain. Maybe if I was still in the Commission, I would have gotten a better insight than I did. Now, let me approach your question this way. First of all, there are at least two dimensions to the Beavers. Don't forget, Beavers was used for authentication, and I think by and large most commentators acknowledge that it worked very well. But it also was used for the upload, the scanning or taking a photograph of the result sheets and uploading it. Yes, they said they had technical glitches. I don't know the exact nature. Most of us don't know the exact nature of those technical glitches. Was it a question of equipment failure uploading from the Beavers to the server? Or was it the server not in a position to receive them? We've heard conflicting or different stories about that. So I'm not a technical person, and I don't know what the technical things are, and the Commission hasn't come up with all the facts. Perhaps an inquiry, either an independent one or by the Commission in the coming days or weeks, will give us better insights into that. Now, was it a tenable reason? Let me put it this way. The Commission has power under Section 24 of the Electoral Act to postpone elections. Although that seems to suggest, if you read the wordings of the Act, it's more like a natural disaster or other emergencies. So I want to believe...
security, yeah.
Well, it didn't mention national security.
Yeah.
It just says if there's a likelihood of threat of violence, breakdown of law and order.
Issue of security was...
Issue of serious insecurity. One has to threaten the breakdown. Not just insecurity. There's always insecurity in the country. But at least one, you're right, one that will threaten national security or breakdown of law and order in a particular locality or around the whole country. INEC has a power to postpone, or natural disaster, or such other emergency. Now, I want to believe that INEC has come under that provision of other emergency. Because it doesn't even say that if it's equipment failure or glitches with equipment that you can postpone an election. But I want to believe it's liberal enough and flexible enough to say it's an emergency situation occasioned by this urgent need to reconfigure the beavers. So in that sense, I think you'll say it may be tenable. Whether Nigerians accept that or don't accept it, maybe somebody directly from INEC involved in the process might come and expatiate a little bit more, because that is, I think, is what is necessary, because INEC should be building confidence, trying to rebuild trust in it. Trust is low in many areas now. We have to do all we can because it's the commission. INEC is the only person who can conduct elections. So there has to be some level of trust, there has to be some level of understanding and level of cooperation between INEC and the people itself, the good citizens of this country. There has to be so. So we have to give them benefit of the doubt that this is a good enough reason, because they know, and we wouldn't have accepted, citizens would not have accepted if this governorship election turned out to be disastrous.
INEC is promising here that it will make sure that the back-end server, in fact, that you can get a certified true copies of the back-end data of the beavers, that also that the results, they are guaranteeing that the result on the beavers will be transmitted on the IRF and it will be viewable. These are some of the promises that it's now left whether Nigerians will believe INEC, because we've heard this over and over again, and it's also perplexing that INEC itself is not coming up beyond the paper statement that INEC is releasing. I mean, for those who manage information and communication, we know that it's needed. And trust is also based on what you earn, not what you think you deserve. INEC has been able to get the trust of Nigerians. Whether or not they can get a continued trust of Nigerians is left to them, how they manage the communication and information. But up until now, Nigerians will be able to judge whether or not INEC deserve that kind of. But when you are unable to earn, then you move to the realm of whether or not you deserve it. But I would like to really dwell on the necessity of the postponement. So the question is, first and foremost, I want to give INEC a benefit of the doubt. The fine, INEC needed to do what it needs to do, and they need to no excuse any longer. They need to get it right and all of that. How long do you think, technically speaking, it would take to back up? Because there are two stages now. They need to back up all the data on the beavers.
Yes. Then
also get it reconfigured for the new election.
Correct.
Do they need more than 48 hours to do that?
Again, unfortunately, to answer that, we may a little bit have to dwell or make certain suppositions and dwell on the realm of information that is not all available to us at this point in time. My understanding is that some of these equipment, all of them, had to be brought to Abuja. And if that is the case, there's a logistics challenge in moving them up and down. And as far as my understanding, I'm not a technical person, as I keep saying, my understanding is that you probably have to, each one is polling unit specific. Data of all those in that polling unit or in that ward have been stored in the device. So, you know, it's not just a software issue. There's a software part of it, and there's also the thing that you have to reconfigure each one individually. Of course, you have to charge each one individually as well. So the issue is that how many days, that's really a technical question which only the commission can answer. But my understanding is that each individual one has to be reconfigured, because now there are a couple of elections. I know that, like card reader, let me take an analogy with card reader. Card reader was programmed in such a way that it's election specific. So if there's an election on the 11th of March, you program it from 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning when the polling is supposed to start, and you leave it till about, not 2:30 when it closes, but maybe about 6:30, 7:30, 8:30, by which time everybody on the queue ought to have been accredited and voted. The reason for this is not far-fetched. It's also a question of building trust. The reason is that, look, we don't want this thing to start so that you don't preload things before the time.
Before then, yeah.
And also, you don't want it to go too far into the night, because when people are out of the polling unit, you go and do untoward things and put in more information, more data than is required, and you got on the field. So it has to be programmed specifically under those parameters. And I think that was done. I don't know the technical terms for all those things. So you now have to reconfigure those ones for this election. Now, the time between declaration of results and the second election was 12 days or thereafter. So there's enough time to do that. But now, because of the court order, do not tamper with these things. The court, I think the commission obeyed that order and stayed behind and did not do anything with those equipment that the order covered. So they had to wait. And the ruling, the court did not come till about this time, late yesterday evening. So obviously nothing could be done, no action could be taken until they were sure that the all clear was given, that the order of the Court of Appeal was amended, because the initial order was don't tamper with these things. Now, reconfiguration would have meant tampering with it and disobedience of that court order. I think they said, let us wait until the court gives the all clear, which it did late yesterday evening.
But the question is that INEC knows, and I'm asking this because there's a lot of anger about the conduct of the last election, yes. The glitches that we're seeing, and I guess some of the anger that I consider that that INEC needs to listen to is not the partisan anger. It's about the anger of those who took INEC's words
Absolutely.
As the gospel, yes. And they took it into that election, and they left everything they were doing, and you convinced them that, look, election will be credible. They traveled to the country. Some traveled from various residents, yes. to wherever they choose to vote, and they spend a lot of money, their own money, to exercise their civic responsibilities. But now they've been disappointed by that. And the question is, as soon as the ex-parte order was given by the court, technically, INEC is the expert that needs to understand that as soon as this comes, it has messed up, it will have messed up the timeline in which they need to do this. I am assuming that INEC should have known since Monday that this election of Saturday will not hold. I think it's just commonsensical. That if you know, for example, that Saturday is the day for, and if you don't book your flight on the certain date, you might not be able to travel, you know that there is a problem with your travel schedule. So if INEC has seen this happen, why did they wait until 5 p.m. when the court said they should reconfigure before they started meeting, and now came out to say we postpone the election? I mean,
11:30 at night.
What do you say to Nigerians who are watching now that the kind of anger that I explained, is it justified?
Oh, certainly, I can understand their anger. If I was in the position, well, I was supposed to travel. I also felt some righteous indignation. A lot of people felt angry, and understandably so, because I know as a fact that a lot of planning went into this process, into the election. A lot of planning started years before, even before I left. Planning had already commenced towards the 2023 elections. It was ironic that one of the, I think, was it the EU or the NDIR, said, look, they were not satisfied with the planning. The planning was haphazard. And they also had some justification for what they saw on the field to say so. One would have expected that there'll be plan A and there'll be plan B. But the hindrance to taking it from Monday they got the order. They now filed their application. Look, we need to amend this order if we're going to undertake this election on Saturday. They had to await the court ruling one way or the other. It wasn't given that the court will rule in their favor.
Mr. Uzi,
yes.
If the court had ruled otherwise, saying these beavers...
You shouldn't wait for the court to rule before you do plan B.
That means the election can hold.
Yes.
Because it's the same 176,000 beavers that you used in the presidential election that you will use.
Absolutely.
Now, that is given. It's almost... it goes without saying.
Yes.
And now the court gave... if they were waiting that the court would say reconfigure and they will be able to hold the election, one would have said, oh, INEC is right to have waited. But either the court ruled in their favor or not, yes, the election would have been postponed. That should have been foreseen by INEC, except if there's nobody in the commission, and I don't think it is, that actually do some kind of foresighting and projects and, you know, strategically plan. And I mean, you've worked in the commission for years.
Yes.
I'm very sure there are people who are operations people, who are strategy and planners in the commission who should have known before now that whichever way the case, in fact, lawyers, there are a lot of lawyers in the commission who have known whichever way this case goes or this order goes, we have to postpone the election.
Yes, indeed. A lot of people in the commission are well versed in elections. Many of them have been there since inception, since INEC was established in 1998. Some earlier than that. Quite a number of people are still there who worked with NEC, who worked with NEC on. So yes, there's a reservoir of knowledge of processes and things that I have done. And I think an indication of that should have come when we realized, I've seen this, I told you, look, in 2019 election was postponed, in 2015 it was postponed, in 2011 it was postponed. It's almost 10 divided by 3,
We are now,
you get 3.333, that recurring decimal.
A nation that is cursed with postponement of elections.
I hope not, but
no, it does look.
But sadly, I mean, sadly, 4 consecutive cycles they have now been postponed.
Is that a fact? 2011 postponement, and based on logistics, these are issues of logistics.
Yes, planning ought to have addressed some of these issues. I don't know the mischief that could have been caused. They filed this application on Monday. It ought to have been taken. Maybe alternate plans or alternate arrangements could have been done. Or they probably, maybe, look, we suspend this indefinitely pending when the court rules. But I did read on and saw on certain commentaries that said that, look, INEC was trying to blackmail the country when it threatened that the election might have to be postponed if the court ruled otherwise. That commentary was made. And because of the indignation, because of the anger, and look, let's look at it. How was trust built? INEC conducted elections in 1998, 99. Well, people just wanted to get rid of the military. It wasn't perfect, but acceptable. 2003, people were not happy. 2007 was the epoch of it all. So trust was next to zero. People did not trust. But with changes in personnel, with reforms that were brought into place, trust began to build up. And I think it reached a crescendo just in 2022. By the time you brought more technology, by the time you conducted Osun, Edo, Ekiti, Ondo, Osun, and then they saw the way technology improved the process, and Osun was picture perfect. People went to the side, oh, they could really do this. It was all the by-elections where it was. So expectations were now high, and people were ready to forgive the sins of the past. I think at that time, INEC became one of the most trusted public institutions. Now, trust is a fragile thing. Once this one happened, and that is what compelled the commission to say, look, we can do this, we'll transmit real time, this will happen, that will happen. Unfortunately, it did not happen. So the trust crashed.
You think that INEC brought this present anger on itself?
In the sense that it's the one responsible for conduct of elections, in the sense that it had given assurances, in the sense that it had raised the people's hopes, that it had really promised and assured people that it will continue, it will do what has to be done. In that sense, you raise people's hopes a great deal. Some people say, well, you overpromised and you underachieved and delivered. Unfortunately, things did not work. Maybe some people say, I've read some technical reports, I read the National Computer Institute of Societies complain about certain things and stuff like that, that there should have been stress tests. I think some of those tests were carried out, but maybe not in the same way. Beavers was tested severally. There was a mock test. There were by-election tests.
There was a Saturday meant for that.
Yes. Yeah. Candidate was hardly done. It was just a little bit of candidate.
I do not agree with people who think that there were no preparations.
There were preparations, to be fair.
Because Beavers was not only thrown in the 2023 election. Beavers was used for 2 off-cycle elections. I witnessed it. I saw it. I was one of the journalists who said, this thing worked well. I've covered several elections. Yes. We thought that this was good. I mean, we are Nigerians, we see what happens. Absolutely. We thought that happened. Right. I mean, in terms of information and communication management, should INEC have done better?
I think that perhaps the wave of criticisms, the anger could have been stemmed. It wouldn't satisfy everybody, but I thought with more timely communication, more open, more robust communication, I think more people would have been ready to tolerate and probably forgive, or INEC will probably have shown more understanding. But where communication comes late, it doesn't too little, too late. People are already, their minds are already made up. The space has already been filled with misinformation, alternate information, alternate truths. So it's difficult for yours to now displace that which is there. And people tell you, oh, I saw this thing with my own eyes, you promised that, why didn't you? You should have prepared for technical. If by Saturday evening, for example, oh, we're experiencing technical glitches, but we're working on to resolve it, perhaps many people will have been more tolerant.
I mean, so these have implications. Campaigns have now been extended to Thursday, the 16th of March. Political parties will feel the pinch.
Everybody will feel the pinch, actually. You mentioned citizens who traveled, for example, and I saw social media, a lot of people traveled from abroad to come. They came, they registered, went back to their places of ordinary residence, and then came back to Nigeria to vote. Citizens will be affected. Some internal travels were done. Political parties, certainly. Candidates will be stretched a little bit. The commission itself, the nation itself will spend a lot more money because there are consequences of such action. So everybody is put to some level of inconvenience and some level of expense, almost certainly.